Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the first 2022 Brain Matters webinar for this new series, Learning About Memory Loss. My name is Dina Boone, Public Education Coordinator with the Alzheimer's Society Southwest Partners. I will be the MC and moderator for today's webinar. Susan Oster, another Public Education Coordinator with the Society, will be helping with the technical side of things and managing the chat box. We will also be supporting the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. At the Alzheimer's Society, our role is not only to provide programs and services to people who are going through the journey of dementia, but also to provide dementia education and to advocate for those living with cognitive disabilities. Before we begin, I have some housekeeping business to go over relating to the webinar experience. Please note that your cameras are off and microphones are muted for the webinar. This event is being recorded and the recording will be available in the future on our website. At the end of the presentation, we will have approximately 15 minutes for a moderated Q&A session. We will do our best to address as many questions as we can. During the presentation, if you should think of any questions for the panelists, please add them to the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen, as you see here. Once you click on the Q&A icon in the box, once you click on the Q&A icon, the box will open for you. If you would like to submit a question anonymously, please click the Send Anonymously box before clicking the Send button. Any questions submitted prior to the webinar have been shared with the panelists. We have also enabled the Upvote feature in the Zoom, which allows people to see all questions being asked and to move the most popular questions to the top of the list. If you see a question similar to the one that you would like to ask, simply vote on the question by clicking the thumbs up icon underneath the question, as you see here. Once the icon is clicked, the question will move up the list. Should you have any technical concerns, please type them in the chat box. Susan or I will be happy to help you. Again, move your mouse around so you can see the Zoom controls. Click on the chat icon and it will open up for you. You can submit your comments in the chat box and they will only be seen by the panelists, which includes myself, Susan, and Dana. Since everyone's situation is unique, the information being provided in this presentation is for educational purposes only and not specific advice for your situation. Should you have specific questions about your situation, please contact your family physician for advice. We now have the pleasure of welcoming our guest speaker, Dana Fallowfield-Adams. Dana has been with the Alzheimer's Society for over 10 years. She began as a volunteer companion program coordinator, followed by education coordinator, and is now the manager of education for the Alzheimer's Society Southwest Partners. Before her work at the Alzheimer's Society, she worked in retirement homes and long-term care settings as a recreation and restorative care coordinator. Dana is passionate about dementia and educating the community on the topic and has seen firsthand the impact the disease has on a loved one. And now, please welcome Dana.
Thanks so much, Dina. I'm just going to share my screen here and we will jump right in. Dina, just to confirm, can you see?
Yes, everything looks great, Dina.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dina, and thanks, Susan, for your help behind the scenes there. So welcome, everybody, to learning about memory loss. Excited to have you all here today. So as Dina just mentioned, my name is Dana Fallowfield-Adams, and I am the manager of education for the Alzheimer's Society of Southwest Partners. So we're very excited to have you here today for our January Brain Matters. So just a little bit about what the next hour is going to look like. We're going to talk about age-associated memory loss. I will touch on some tips and tricks on how we can reduce our risk of developing dementia, as well as we'll talk a little bit more about mild cognitive impairment and what that is. We'll touch a little bit on dementia, how we go about getting a diagnosis, and then planning for the future. And as Dina had mentioned, we will leave about 15 minutes at the end of the session today for any questions you may have. And between Dina, Susan, and myself, we will do our best to answer all your questions. Just to start us off here, just to share some statistics with you. So here in Canada, you'll see these stats are based as of 2016. So I mean, this is a few years ago now. But just so you know, we have over 564,000 people in Canada who are living with a form of dementia. There's approximately 25,000 new cases diagnosed each year here in Canada. And we know that in the next approximately 9 years, that our number across the country is going to increase to approximately 937,000 Canadians. Again, another interesting stat, we know that approximately 65% of individuals who are diagnosed with dementia are women. And we do know that if MCI, so that is mild cognitive impairment, if this was included, the estimates would be about 50% higher than what these numbers are reflecting. So, and I will talk more about MCI and what that is a little later in the presentation here. To also give you a perspective of what's going on around the world, you'll see here, these are some of our statistics. This is from the World Health Organization, and these stats are from September 2020, so about a year and a half ago. So worldwide, we know that approximately 50 million people are living with a form of dementia, and there are nearly 10 million new cases every year. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, and it may contribute to approximately 60 to 70% of all cases. We know dementia is one of the major causes of disability and dependency among older people worldwide. And we know that dementia has a physical, psychological, social, and economic impact, not only on the individuals who are living with dementia, but also their care partners, their families, and the society at large. So not only are our cases increasing in Canada, but from the reflection of this, we can see the number of cases of dementia are also increasing worldwide. So age-associated memory loss. So we know when there's no underlying medical condition causing this memory loss, it is often known as age-associated memory impairment, which is considered to be part of the normal aging process. Okay, so age-associated memory impairment and dementia can be told apart in a number of ways. In general, a memory problem may become a concern if it begins to affect our day-to-day living. So we do know that almost 40% of people who are over the age of 65 experience some form of memory loss. But typically, if it's age-associated memory loss, this doesn't affect our day-to-day lives. So we do know that stats tell us that most older adults do not develop dementia. We do know that neuroplasticity allows older adults to learn new skills and improve cognitive performance. So sometimes there's that myth there that, you know, as we age, it's hard for us to learn new things, but that's not necessarily true. This neuroplasticity we talk about does allow us to learn new skills, as well as improve our cognitive performance. And we know that older adults have a wealth of knowledge, skills, and experience that maybe not younger people may not necessarily have. So this is quite often a question we will get. So how do we know age-associated memory loss versus dementia? What's the difference? How can we tell them apart? So when it comes to normal aging, some examples for you are, so maybe you've just gone to a large social gathering. I know we're not doing a lot of that right now with COVID, but hopefully, you know, in the future here we will be, but you've gone to a gathering and you've been introduced to somebody, and just a few minutes later, perhaps maybe you've walked away or you're still chatting with them and you think, I cannot remember what their name is. That is an example of normal aging. Okay. For a lot of us throughout our lives, we struggle with names. And if we don't take a minute to really associate them with their name or with something to help us remember, it's not uncommon that we'll maybe forget even just a few minutes down the road here. Another example of normal aging, you just got home, you were out in town and you were running some errands, and you got home and you realized, I forgot to pick up the milk or the bread that my spouse asked me to pick up. Okay, sure, we can all relate to that. You get home and you forgot what you had been asked to do. Another example, you're in your home and maybe you've gone downstairs to get something for supper out of the deep freeze. And when you get down there, you instead start doing the laundry, folding clothes, and then you start to think, why did I originally come down here? Okay, so again, normal aging. We get busy with other things. We have a lot on our minds. Some other examples of normal aging: having occasional difficulty finding the right words when you're speaking, forgetting things and events occasionally. Okay, we can all forget things at times. Now, some signs of dementia or not normal aging. If you're unable to recall details of recent events or conversations. Okay, so those are maybe conversations you've just had this morning. Maybe your daughter called or you talked to your son on the phone and you're unable to recall the details of that conversation, or you're unable to recall what it is that you did last night. You're unable to recognize or know the name of your family members. Okay. You forget things and events more frequently. So maybe you've missed a doctor's appointment. You know, you're forgetting to pick things up when you're out at the grocery store. And this is happening more frequently on a regular occasion. Another sign that it could be dementia is if your friends and family are worried about your memory, but you're not aware of any problems you may be having. Okay, this can be a sign of dementia as well. So normal versus abnormal. So in healthy aging, we experience mild memory declines. It's because as our brain is an organ and it ages as we age. We just can't see our brain like we can see the changes with our skin and the color in our hair. So our brain can become vulnerable to disease as we age, just like our joints can become more vulnerable to things such as arthritis. Okay. So as we age, most people will experience some gradual memory changes as they age. We know age-related changes have little impact on our day-to-day activities. Okay, so if we're talking about that normal age-related memory loss, we won't see the impact on our day-to-day activities. Concerns begin with when we're starting to see increased memory challenges and they're occurring more regularly. Family members, as I had mentioned, become more worried about your memory than yourself. And when we start seeing that our memory challenges are affecting our day-to-day activities. So we're struggling maybe to get dressed in the morning or to remember what's on our calendar for the day. We're struggling to pay our bills and balance our checkbook, okay, to prepare meals. That's when we start to worry. So you ask, what can I do to reduce my risk of developing dementia? Okay, so we do know there are risk factors, and these risk factors can overwhelm the brain's ability to maintain and repair itself. If we can reduce some of these risk factors, we can help to develop our risk of developing dementia. So you ask what these risk factors are. So the first ones I'm going to mention here are what we call our non-modifiable risk factors. Okay, so these include age. Okay, so we know age, the older you are, the higher our risk is of developing dementia. So approximately 1 in 10 people over the age of 65 live with a form of dementia, and approximately 1 in 3 over the age of 85. So the older we get, the higher our chances are of developing dementia. Another piece that we can't modify is our genetics, okay? So no control over the family we're born into and the genetics that are passed down to us. We do know that approximately 95% of cases of dementia are what we call sporadic. So there is no genetic link in the family, but that leaves us about 5% of cases of dementia are what we call familial dementia. So again, it's a small portion, and more often when we see this genetic form of dementia, or what we call familial form, that's in the form of dementia and what we call young onset. So that's anyone under the age of 65 who is diagnosed with a form of dementia. Okay. So if you have a grandparent that was diagnosed under the age of 65, and then a parent who was diagnosed under the age of 65, then we're more likely looking at the familial form of dementia, and it's being passed down in the genetics. And the last non-modifiable risk factor, pardon me, is sex. Okay, so when we are born, what sex we are born as I had mentioned before, we do know that more women than men are diagnosed with dementia. Now, those are the non-modifiable risk factors, but there is good news, as we do know research shows us that there are risk factors for dementia that we do have some control over ourselves. These include things such as high blood pressure and cholesterol, diabetes, smoking, obesity, our poor diet, if we're being physically inactive, alcohol, especially for long, prolonged periods of time, depression, okay, if left untreated, stress. I think we can all agree we all live with some sort of stress in our lives, and we can't take it away completely, but figuring out what is it that is a stressor to us and finding positive ways to deal with it. Head injury. Lots of research still happening in this field, but recognizing, head injuries, concussions, and the link between them and perhaps tying into dementia later on in life. Lower education levels, social isolation, and another one we're talking and hearing more and more about is hearing loss. Okay. So we do know with all these risk factors, though, that if we do take some steps to put some measures in place, that by, managing these things in a healthy way can help to reduce our risk of dementia. So when you think about cholesterol or blood pressure, if you've been prescribed medications, making sure you're taking them as prescribed, perhaps eating a more healthy diet, being more physically active, protecting our heads, being socially active. So these are all things that we have some control over. So I'm going to give you a break right now from listening to me, and I have a video here to share with you. And this video will talk about what you can do to keep your brain healthy. And Dina, if you can just let me know if you can hear the sound.
Not yet, Dana, sorry.
I had it checked off. Everyone just bear with me for one moment. And we will go back to it. I'll just ask you again, Dina, I have it checked off for sound. So
we all know high
You're all
cholesterol
good, Dana.
in our body, along with high blood pressure and being overweight. But what you might not know is that not only can these health concerns shorten the life of your body, they can affect your brain function. The more scientists study our brains, the more they're finding that how well it works is intricately tied to the health of our body. For example, just 30 minutes of aerobic exercise 5 times a week can keep your brain sharp. Because physical exercise not only helps your heart, it can increase the size of your hippocampus, a part of the brain crucial to making memories. But that's not all. Physical exercise generates a chemical called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which acts like fertilizer for the brain, encouraging the growth of neural connections and new brain cells. So, obviously staying active is important, but not just physically active. You need to keep socially active as well, especially as you get older. Because there's growing evidence to suggest that people who can avoid getting lonely reduce their risk of cognitive decline, something we all agree is a good thing. But there's one last thing you need to do to keep your brain healthy. Keep it active. So, in no particular order, here are 3 top ways to keep your brain stimulated. Number 1, challenge yourself. The satisfaction you get from doing things slightly beyond your comfort zone actually changes your brain chemistry, making you feel more positive. Number 2, change yourself. Novelty helps your brain, so it's good to experience new things, take on new situations and meet new people. And number 3, learn something new. This encourages the growth of new brain cells and stimulates the connections between them, which has its own benefits, because stronger brain connections also help keep your brain healthy. So don't let age stop you from doing the things you love. Think young, because if you look after your brain now, keeping it active and engaged, it will make you proud for years to come. How can we include people with dementia in our community?
Sorry, everyone, it's still playing in the background. I'll go back and share here with you again. So as that video was mentioning, sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up here again. So there are things we can do to keep our brains healthy. So exercise, we know it's important. What we can do for our heart health is good for our brain health. So trying to get that 150 minutes of exercise per week. Some of our most recent studies are even showing that exercise can be done in as small as 10-minute increments. So as simple as a 10-minute walk this morning, 10-minute walk after lunch, and maybe a 10-minute walk this evening. Also mentioned staying socially active. Again, research is showing us the more that we can be socially active and have those connections with others, that is good for our brain health. And the importance of challenging our brains. Okay, so whether it's picking up a new activity or learning to speak a new language or play a musical instrument, these are all going to be things that are great for your brain health. If you're interested in learning more about what you can do to reduce your risk of dementia, we will be offering coming up here in the late winter and into the spring a program called Reducing Your Risk of Dementia. And it's a 3-week series that talks more about what we can do to keep our brains active and healthy. So I'm going to move on now, and we're going to shift to talk a little bit about mild cognitive impairment. So mild cognitive impairment refers to a decline in thinking abilities, often involving memory, which is greater than expected for normal aging, but not severe enough to interfere with a person's ability to manage their day-to-day activities. And that's a quote from Dr. Kay Murphy. So we know that a person who is living with MCI, we know they're able to continue on and manage their activities of daily living. So they're able to take their medications, do their own banking, pay their bills, get around town, able to cook their own meals and take care of the household. We also know that MCI is not a form of dementia. Okay. A person with MCI has more difficulty in thinking and remembering than they should for their age, but those difficulties don't affect their functioning enough to be diagnosed as dementia. So we know that 5 to 10% of people who are living with MCI will progress to dementia each year. Okay, typically less than half of those who are diagnosed with MCI will go on to develop dementia. We also know that some people who are currently living with MCI may even improve back to what we call normal aging. Okay. Again, mild cognitive impairment, although we've been aware of it and we've learned a fair bit about it, it's still a relatively new area of research, and there's still a lot more to learn in this field. So how do we treat MCI? So really with some behavioral interventions, as well as controlling vascular risks. So that's doing things maybe such as eating a more healthy diet, increasing our physical activities levels, doing more cognitive activities, as that video had suggested, and really challenging our brains, increasing our socialization, making sure we're managing and treating depression, high blood pressure, cholesterol. As far as medication, there are no medications for MCI except those that may help control our vascular health. Okay. One program we do like to mention for anyone who has been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment is a program that was developed by Baycrest in Toronto, and it's called Learning the Ropes for Living with MCI. This is a 6-week education series for individuals who are living with MCI, as well as if they have a family member or a friend who would like to attend. But again, this 6 weeks is spent just exploring what MCI is, as well as teaching our clients tips and tricks for how to keep their brains active and healthy, as well as what are some things they can do to help with their memory loss. So things such as using a calendar. So great program. Again, that's a 6-week education course out of Baycrest, and we do offer it at the Alzheimer's Society of Southwest Partners. So just shifting now slightly from MCI, which we know is someone who's experiencing more than normal age-related memory loss, but we know MCI is not dementia. But now we are going to touch just briefly on what dementia is. Okay, so we know dementia is not a disease itself, but it's a set of symptoms that accompanies a disease. Okay. So dementia can include things such as progressive memory loss, but it can also include things as well, such as problems with finding the right words, struggling to explain oneself, or understanding what it is that others are asking of them. Decreased ability to reason through a situation. An individual may even have difficulty making decisions or making the right decision. For someone who is also living with dementia, we may also see changes in their mood and their behavior and changes in personality. So for someone who's living with dementia, many of these symptoms, if not early on, they eventually will have an impact on the person's day-to-day functioning. So just briefly, again, I'm not going to dive too deep into the forms of dementia, as I'm sure we could spend a whole afternoon on the different forms of dementia and what they look like. But often when I'm out giving public presentations, I do get the question is, what is dementia? And what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? So as you'll see on the screen here, this is what we call our dementia umbrella. Okay, so the word dementia is an umbrella term for symptoms like memory loss, confusion, personality changes. And dementia can be caused by a number of different diseases, which include. So some of the most common forms of dementia are Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, frontal temporal dementia, or what we call FTD. And we also know there's other more rarer forms of dementia as well. Okay, so we do know stats tell us that there's well over 100 different forms of dementia. Okay, so just to give you that understanding that dementia is our umbrella term, and underneath we have the different forms of dementia. Okay, so just like so many things you can compare it to, but thinking grocery stores, we would have grocery stores, and then underneath all the different grocery stores. So we have our Zehrs and our Sobeys and Foodland. So that's the same with the term dementia, and then the different forms. So another good piece to understand is the warning signs of dementia. And the Alzheimer's Society's broken these down into the 10 warning signs. So I'm just going to quickly go through these. But again, you can reference our website for more information on the warning signs, or we're happy to answer questions. But first warning sign, again, these don't necessarily go in order, or for someone in the early stages of dementia, they won't necessarily exhibit all 10 of these signs. It may only be a few. But recent memory loss, specifically, may affect their job skills or their day-to-day activities. We've talked much about difficulty performing familiar tasks. So one thing many of us tend to do in the morning, we get up and we make a pot of coffee. And maybe an individual who's done this for many years, they now start to struggle to perform this task that should come fairly easy to them. How much water do I put in the coffee pot? Where do I find the coffee grounds? How much water, or sorry, you guys already said that. How much water in the coffee pot? Coffee grounds, where do I keep the filter? Another warning sign is problems with language. So again, I had mentioned earlier, just maybe struggling to find the right word, or using words that don't necessarily fit the context. Disorientation in time and place. Okay, so maybe struggling to know what day of the week it is, what month, what year, or perhaps going to a family member's home and forgetting where they are, or not able to find the washroom within the home. Poor or decreased judgment can be a warning sign as well. Problems with abstract thinking, so struggling with directions or money and numbers and balancing checkbooks, misplacing things. Okay, so again, I think we can all agree we've all misplaced things at times, but it's to the extent that this is happening. And where are we finding these things? Okay, is it a wristwatch in the sugar bowl, or perhaps hanging a t-shirt in the refrigerator? We may also see changes in mood and behavior. That can be a warning sign. Changes in personality. Okay, someone who's always been very maybe easygoing and humorous, and we start to notice that they're pulling away, and they're maybe not as outgoing and don't want to interact. And loss of initiative is another warning sign. Okay, so again, maybe someone who's always been involved in a group at their church, or they've always gone out for coffee with the guys on Friday mornings, and they start to say, I don't want to go this week, no thank you. Or maybe someone who's always taken pride in their yard, and they're always out in the gardens, and they start to say, I'll cut the grass tomorrow, or I'll go pull the weeds tomorrow. Okay, they start to lose that initiative. So just keeping an eye on the time here. So how do I know if my memory loss is age-associated memory, a mild cognitive impairment, or is it dementia? So that's a great question. So I have one more video here I'm going to share with you that will hopefully help to answer some of these questions. So we do know it's important to know when to see your doctor if you're having memory concerns, but it's also equally important to know that forgetting someone's name doesn't necessarily mean that you are getting dementia. So as I just said, hopefully this video here will help to explain when it is time to see your doctor and how your doctor may be able to help.
I have trouble remembering things. Does this mean I'm getting dementia? As you grow older, it's easy to jump to conclusions about your memory, especially after you've lost your house keys again. or drawn a blank when faced with someone you know you've met before? These small lapses of memory and attention can feel like the end of the world. But it's important to remember, your brain is a very complex organ. Forgetting the odd word or name doesn't mean you're getting dementia. And yet, these lapses of memory could mean something.
The joys of technology. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
I have trouble remembering things,
All good.
especially after
Repeat
you've
a
lost
little
your
bit there.
house keys
Sorry, everyone.
again. Or drawn a blank when faced with someone you know you've met before. These small lapses of memory and attention can feel like the end of the world. But it's important to remember, your brain is a very complex organ. Forgetting the odd word or name doesn't mean you're getting dementia. And yet, these lapses of memory could mean something. Because many different things can affect your memory. Over-the-counter or prescription medications, excessive use of alcohol, or an underlying medical condition that you might not even be aware of. Even psychological causes can affect memory, because when you feel depressed or experience ongoing stress, your brain releases a hormone called cortisol into your bloodstream. High levels of this cortisol can impair the cells in your hippocampus, a part of the brain vital for making memories. This can make it more difficult for you to create new memories or retrieve old ones. So, you may well have a memory problem, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have dementia. You need to be aware of your brain health. And most importantly, see your family doctor about your memory concerns. Because a doctor can help identify any underlying conditions that could be affecting your memory, or help you to manage stress or anxiety in a healthy way, if that's the issue, or change or stop medications that may be causing your memory problems. And remember, some causes of dementia are treatable, even reversible, which is added incentive for you to book an appointment with your doctor for a memory checkup. And a little comfort, your doctor might not bring the bad news you've been dreading.
So getting a diagnosis. So we know there is no single test to diagnose dementia, but the process may include things such as collecting your medical history, a physical examination, running some lab tests, possibly even doing some cognitive screeners, such as the MOCA, or the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. Your doctor may even suggest a CT, an MRI, or a PET scan, as well as some neuropsychological testing. So, as with the video we had just watched, again, we quite often, doctors will like to rule out any other underlying health concerns. As mentioned in the video, it could be something as simple as a medication or a nutritional deficiency that's having an impact on your memory. So again, doctors like to work through this before we come to the diagnosis of dementia. Pardon me. So are you concerned about your memory or someone else? We would encourage you to talk with your family, as well as to talk with your doctor and perhaps ask for a memory screen. You can also reach out to the Alzheimer's Society in your area. So again, anyone living in the Elgin, Middlesex, Oxford County areas, you can reach out to the Alzheimer's Society of Southwest Partners. But if anyone's joining us from outside of those counties, you can reach out to the society in your region, or again, you can reach out to us and we would be happy to put you in touch with the proper society. How can the Alzheimer's Society of Southwest Partners help? So we do offer a wide range of programs and services that are designed for individuals who are living with dementia or have memory concerns, as well as programs for their family members, caregivers, as well as healthcare professionals and the general public as well. So just briefly, just know that we're here to help. As mentioned, we have education programs that we offer for individuals who are living with dementia, as well as their family members and friends. We do offer some counseling. Okay, so whether it's in-home or in-office assessments. Right now with COVID, a lot of our counseling is happening virtually. So as I had mentioned, either on the phone or via Zoom, hoping to return to some in-person too here in the future. We do offer support groups, okay, that are facilitated by our family support workers. So again, support groups are happening on a monthly basis throughout the region. Currently, majority of them are happening virtually, a few in person. Again, hoping to eventually return to some more in-person activities and education and support here in the future. The Alzheimer's Society Southwest Partners, we also offer recreation programs, okay, for individuals who are living with dementia. Here on our screen, it mentions memory screening. This is something that we no longer do at the Society, but it's definitely something that our family support workers or our social workers, they're open, they can discuss with you and your family what these memory screeners look like, who it is you can turn to have these screeners completed. So we can definitely direct you in the right direction. As well as we have in-home recreation programming as well. So that's where one of our staff members or a trained volunteer can go out into your homes as well to provide in-home recreation opportunities. And lastly, one I had already mentioned, but for the person who's living with mild cognitive impairment, is that 6-week Bayshore program that I had mentioned called Learning the Ropes. For the general public and for healthcare professionals, we do offer a variety of educational resources and programs geared towards the community, healthcare providers, and professionals. And lastly, as we slowly wrap up here, we have a Finding Your Way program, as well as the Medical Alert Safely Home program. I'm just going to take a minute here just to touch briefly on Finding Your Way, and then we will wrap up and open it up to some more questions. So just quickly to mention Finding Your Way, this was a program that was created by the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario and the Ontario Senior Secretariat. It was developed over concern over the number of missing incidents that were happening for individuals who are living with dementia. So the purpose of our Finding Your Way program is to raise awareness of the risk of going missing for people who are living with dementia. It's to help try to prevent missing incidents by promoting the creation of a safety plan. And it's to help support the safe return of people who do go missing. So what should I do if I know someone who is living with dementia? We would encourage them to tell someone where they are going and carry ID on them at all times. We'd encourage them to wear a Medical Alert Safely Home bracelet. That's a picture you can see here on the bottom corner of the screen. If you have questions about the Medical Alert bracelet, we're happy to answer those, send you more information. Encourage them to use locating technology. That could be something such as a cell phone, carrying that with them, as well as completing the Finding Your Way identification form. So again, that's something that we here at the Alzheimer's Society can assist you with completing if need be. Another area of Finding Your Way, if you're interested in more information, is going to findingyourwayontario.ca. And here you will find many helpful resources for yourself and your family. You'll see the identification kit. There's more information about locating technology, as well as some other helpful guides, as well as some videos as well. There's 4 learning modules on the website as well that are free and open to anyone to enroll in. So that's just a very quick synopsis of our Finding Your Way program. That brings us to the end of my presentation here. So we do have, I think it's about 12 minutes here. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening. we will open it up for questions, and I'll have Dina and Susan join me as our public education coordinators. And between the three of us, we will do our best to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Dana, for such an informative and helpful presentation. To our attendees, I'm sure that you have many thoughts and questions after Dana's presentation. As Dana mentioned, we have approximately about 12 minutes available for questions. If we are happy to stay on a little bit past 1 o'clock, and you are welcome to stay on and join us. But for those of you that need to leave, by all means, please feel free to leave when you do need to. And also, just a friendly reminder that to please enter all questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box, so that we can keep track of them. And remember to also watch the questions coming in so that you can upvote a question that may be similar to the one that you are thinking about asking by just simply clicking on the thumbs up icon in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen there. Okay, so we're going to start off here. Bear with me here as I rearrange my screens as well. And we already have some questions here, so this is great. So the first one is, if someone is on an antidepressant, does that reduce the risk of dementia associated with depression? I read somewhere that if someone is on an antidepressant for a long time, it can contribute to dementia.
Who wants to take this one?
So my understanding is that, as it was mentioned, as Dana mentioned during her presentation, that there are some medications that can cause dementia-like symptoms. So the best thing to do in this scenario, if you're concerned, is to please speak to your family doctor for sure. And then they will, rule out. And if that is the case, then that can be one of those, quick fixes, right? That if that is causing you dementia-like symptoms, then for sure they can perhaps find another medication that will work better for you moving forward.
And I think just to add to that is also just, again, check in with your pharmacist. I think that also will relate to one of the other questions that has come up, to look at, again, how things might be interacting, but really check in with your healthcare team, your primary whether it be nurse practitioner, doctor, and your pharmacist, to ask those questions and find out what works best for you.
Thanks, Susan. I have read that hormonal changes in women as they age are a contributing factor. Are bioidentical hormones or other hormonal treatments helpful?
I can do that one, Dana, if you'd like, or if you, I can certainly.
You go and I'll jump in if I have anything else.
What I'll do, I'll put this in the chat box, and perhaps we can share this, maybe a little bit of a resource page that we can attach to the slides. A great webinar that was hosted last year through the Brain Exchange, and the topic was, why do more women than men have Alzheimer's disease? So it's with an expert in this area who will kind of go through all of that, and she touches on hormones and a whole bunch of other things. So I know personally I always defer to the folks who are doing this research, but I will put that link in the chat box.
Thank you, Susan. That'll be really helpful.
Yeah.
Do over-the-counter help with memory? See lots of ads on TV suggesting so. I can answer this really quickly. We do see a lot of ads, proclaiming to, help with our memory. The marketing industry does a great job in this. Unfortunately, these supplements, there's no scientific evidence to prove that this is the case. So, we're not going to say that they don't at all, but, they're not regulated. So we can't say that, yes, they do and they do not. So there's not enough evidence at all. So the best thing, again, to do is to speak with your doctor. And if you're looking to try to help improve your memory, as Dana had mentioned, is to try to do something new for your brain. So like a new activity and creating those little neuroplasticity, new little neurons that will be created in your brain when you try something new and challenging.
Thanks, Dina. Yeah, definitely. Plus exercise, as you just said, challenging our brain and being socially active. We know those things are good for our memories. So
Do you have any advice for family members dealing with someone who is exhibiting signs of dementia, however, is in complete denial? This is a very common situation that we hear about.
absolutely, and very tough for families to address. So what I would recommend is reaching out to the society, working with one of our family support workers, social workers, who can maybe help to kind of direct you as we work through this. As Dina had mentioned, it's something that we do see a lot, and we get this question a lot. Yeah, so it's hard to say, not knowing the individual exactly in the exact situation, but something that definitely our clinical team would be happy to answer questions and give you some maybe tips and tricks on how to navigate this.
So just to add to Dana's comments about connecting with one of our social workers, I want to really stress here that you do not need a referral to access services to the Alzheimer's Society. So quite often people think you do, but you do not. So even if you're concerned, even as a loved one or as a care partner, and you want support for yourself, then you can just pick up the phone and call us directly, and you can go through, a bit of an intake process, which is typically done over the phone, and then we would connect you with a social worker. And then that social worker would stay with you for as long as you like. So I just wanted to mention that moving forward. Are there support groups for isolated adults to have more social stimulation? So I can, absolutely, we certainly do. So Dana had mentioned in her presentation that part of our recreation program, our social program, there is an in-home recreation program that clients, if they are deemed appropriate, that can access. And so this is when either a staff member or one of our volunteers would get matched with a client based on their interests and similarities, and then they would actually have weekly visits with that client. So, but again, before that, any of this can happen, you have to be a registered client. We would connect you with one of our social workers, and then the social worker, would have a conversation with you to make sure that you're appropriate for the program, and then, the things would be put in motion. The referral would get put through by the social worker, and then that's when the connections would start. Is there anything else that I've missed here, ladies, on this one?
I think you've got it there, Dina. Yeah, just knowing that we do have, our in-home rec support, but we also have some other virtual programming that's happening. It's just really making that connection with us if you haven't already. And yeah, we can do the assessments and find out what's going to be the right fit. So, but lots of options for sure.
Does the Medical Alert Safely Home program assist with costs associated with the Medical Alert bracelet?
Yes, so it does. Certainly, that's another, they have a program through the Medical Alert Foundation. And certainly if you are connected to one of our social workers, one of our team, they can help you with that process to get that application submitted. So there should never be, again, for financial need, they always want to make sure that people have access to that great service. And also keeping in mind that it's a form of a registry. So the bracelet is one component, but again, and a lot of actually in our area, many of our police services are connected to a program called Connect Protect. So they have sort of 24/7 sort of direct access to that registry. So if the person does go missing, the police can pull up that file and all that information right away. So that even regardless of the bracelet, that information is in a registry.
Thanks, Susan. And sorry, Dina, just to throw in there a little bit more about finding your way too, there's also that identification form, and there's no cost associated with the finding your way identification form. So again, if you have more questions, we can send you more information. You can visit findingyourwayontario.ca for more information, but that is another option with no cost associated.
Thank you, ladies. How does balance, standing, and walking relate to memory/Alzheimer's?
I can touch that one if you like.
Sure.
I know there's actually in our area, there's some research that's been happening over a number of years. And hopefully I know my own wish list wish list. Would love to have them come and do some updates, looking at gait changes and being an indicator or risk, or looking at early risk or indicator of dementia. So certainly you might see some gait changes, and that might appear even before some other symptoms. So there is the research happening in that area. But certainly if you're interested, you can send us a note. I can perhaps connect you to anything that's come from that research, and hopefully down the road, we can have that as part of our Brain Matters.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any research studies in London that they need volunteers to sign up? I can answer this one. Yes, absolutely. There is research that is currently happening in London, and we are actually working with the clinical team actually here in London, and we're actually going to be presenting some information related to research studies and opportunities, and that will be happening in April. So stay tuned for more details on that, and we'll be happy to provide you some information moving forward. With mild decline being relatively new, how can we know the difference? It seems like the symptoms can be very similar.
So I'm just wondering here, I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding the full question here, but I know early on, sometimes we're seeing changes, and maybe it can be hard to differentiate, is this just part of the normal aging process? Is it dementia? Again, this is where we say, you can reach out to us, but more importantly, maybe your doctor. We had talked about getting a diagnosis, but how they like to run through, a medical history, and maybe running some lab tests to maybe, try to see, is there an underlying health condition that's going on, or is it in fact, are we looking something out, such as a mild cognitive impairment or early stages of dementia? So really, I'd recommend reaching out to your doctor and asking these questions and having them do a bit of a workup.
I've just put another resource in the chat. It's a great resource from Alzheimer's Society of Canada called Getting a Diagnosis Toolkit. So pretty comprehensive. And again, you can kind of keep that with you and work through it. And that, if you are speaking to your doctor, you've got everything right in front of you. And sometimes going, you've got such a limited amount of time. So this makes your visit really efficient, and hopefully kind of makes that case when you speak to your doctor to say, hey, these are the concerns I have.
Thank you so much, ladies. If your doctor gives us close to the top of the testing, can the doctor take away your driving license?
So I'm assuming that's asking if you've done one of the cognitive assessments, so the mini mental examination or the MOCA, and the scoring hasn't been great. It is my understanding that doctors do have the responsibility to report to the Ministry of Transportation. Okay. Again, this comes up a lot, driving and dementia. We do actually have a webinar coming up on driving and dementia in February. Dina will mention it, I think, here as we wrap up. But that would be a good place to come out to and ask some more questions and whatnot.
Thanks, Dana, for sure. Sorry. Okay, sorry. This is just a comment here that says, I don't see a spot to say thanks for this. Well done and answered my concerns. So you are most welcome, and it's our pleasure to present for you today. Next question, has Educab proven helpful in cognition?
I think,
Dana, I'll let you take that one.
This is a great question, and what I'm actually going to do is defer. We are going to be having a panel discussion coming up in March with Dr. Borey, as well as some guest speakers, and they're going to talk about some of the things that are going on as far as treatments for dementia, one of them being Educab, but Dina will talk about that and mention the date here in just a minute or two.
Yes, thank you, Dana.
Good question, though. Yeah,
it is, totally. Just a question, how do you sign up for the 6-week education program that you mentioned earlier, as well as are you going to be sending a copy of the session? So this program, that's the Learning the Ropes program that I believe you're referring to. So for people that have perhaps a diagnosis of MCI. So again, you need to be, if you do it through the society, which we do run the program, you do need to be a registered client. So the first thing you need to do is contact us, go through the intake process so that we can assign you a social worker. And then actually, as you're going through the intake process, please indicate that you are interested in the Learning the Ropes 6-week MCI program specifically, because that will also be noted during your intake process, and that information will be brought forward to the social worker that you will be assigned to. And then once you do connect with the social worker, they will contact you for your initial appointment, and then you can have that conversation again, expressing your interest in that program, and then they will provide you the information of upcoming sessions. And typically we will see sessions that will run and in the spring and in the fall. And again, it just depends on the demand that we're getting at the time, but that's typically how that is done. But you do need to be a registered client in order to access our the programs here. If you're interested in the Baycrest, like doing it directly through Baycrest, then that would be done. You would have to go specifically through Baycrest, go to their site, and they actually have an area on the Baycrest site for that program. Good question. Is it covered by OHIP in Canada?
I think that was related to the question earlier about the therapeutic treatments for dementia. It just got separated. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Susan, do you want to pick that one up? I'm missing which one that was.
Oh yeah. So that's, again, it's not those medications that those treatments that we're being asked about are not yet approved in Canada. But again, stay tuned for our talk with Dr. Bory and guests, and they'll be talking more about that.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. Thanks for clarifying, Susan. Can symptoms vary from day to day and even within the day? Absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you go ahead, Dana. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Can vary from day to day, even within the same day. We will also see, depending on the form of dementia too, changes in cognition within the day, or even moment to moment. So and each person is different too. I mean, they can very much be with us and in the now, and and in a few minutes or whatnot, or later today become maybe more confused. We also talk about too the time of day. Quite often, if someone's had a good night's rest and we wake up and our brains are usually doing well in the morning, but not uncommon to see someone maybe with dementia in the afternoon, early evening, especially if they've had a busy day, for confusion to maybe increase as the day goes on. So definitely.
Thanks, Dana. How much does hearing loss impact MCI? This is a good question. So I can start with explaining this a little bit, and the ladies jump in. So if someone is struggling with hearing, then it can be perceived perhaps by someone indicating that they have an issue with their cognitive abilities, right? So they could present like they're not hearing, or they're not understanding things correctly. They're not doing as they're asked. And so it's really, really important that if there is a concern with respect to your hearing, or even it could also even be if the person has hearing aids, for example, and they're just not wearing them, on a regular basis, or perhaps they need to be tuned up, right? Or perhaps another set needs to be prescribed, because sometimes, we need to, they don't work as well, and there's new ones that come about. So it's important to get your hearing checked for sure by an audiologist. It's really, really important that you get that done by an audiologist and not by someone just walking into a hearing clinic, because sometimes there are people that actually will do the adjustments with your hearing aids, for example, but they may not necessarily be the audiologist. So it's really, really important that you do get your hearing tested by an audiologist. Ladies, is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
I don't think so, Dina, just that we know hearing loss, this is more of a newer topic, I would say, and we're still learning much about it. But as Dina was saying, it's important to have your hearing checked. I mean, we all seem to go out and we have our eyes checked regularly and we go to the dentist, but hearing seems to be one that we've never really, done on a regular basis. So we do encourage everyone to get your hearing check. And maybe if there is no hearing loss, at least now we have a benchmark moving forward.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dana. How much does hearing loss impact? Oh, sorry. Wrong. I just did that one. If your doctor gives, we've already
Did that one.
We've already done that one. That one's already done. Is there such a thing as aggressive dementia?
No, so no dementia that we would consider aggressive dementia. Dementia can come along with a set of behaviors, what we call responsive behaviors. And for some people who are living with dementia, as the disease progresses, at times we may see some aggression as part of the behaviors, but in itself, there is not a form called aggressive dementia. I don't know if Susan or Dina, you want to add to that?
I'm not sure, again, if that's, or if it's something that is rapidly progressing, if that's the definition in the question. I'm not sure what the person asking
How
the
to
question.
take that. Yeah, sorry.
So certainly there might be dementia, especially perhaps more some of the rarer dementias that may progress more quickly. Yes. So really it's kind of a range, but there might be other factors that could contribute to a person's dementia progressing more quickly. But again, a good question for your medical team to be finding out kind of what that looks like.
Thanks, ladies. There has been talk of COVID brain fog. Not sure that this has been scientifically proven and it's a stretch, but is there a chance we could be seeing cognitive decline due to this? That's a good question.
That is a good question and an interesting question. And we do know when we talk about brain health, we talk about the importance of just being socially active. And we know with COVID, so much of our time we have spent away from, family members and friends, and maybe not getting out to do those activities that we enjoy and having those social interactions. So it's quite possible that I would say, having an impact, not only on our brain health, but our overall health, not having these same opportunities that we did pre-COVID. So yeah, definitely interesting though.
I think there'll be a lot more research happening with the, again, longer term effects of having had a COVID infection, because I've heard about the COVID brain fog and comparing it to going through chemotherapy, and I've had chemo, so I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go through that again. So I can appreciate that. I think it'll be a big new area of research because it's so new to see what some of these longer term effects might be. So stay tuned. I'm sure even in our local area, there will be this research happening.
Thanks, ladies. And our last question, there's interest in the dates of coming up with Dr. Boring. I'm going to share that with you shortly. And also the last question is, can one take learning the ropes more than once? And yes, absolutely you can. So again, as long as you're connected with a society, just have that conversation with your social worker and just say, you know what, I really enjoy the program and I just think I could benefit from doing it again. So for absolutely you can just bring it forward to your social worker. Okay, so I think we've wrapped up with the questions, which is great. We're just past 1 o'clock here, so we're just going to wrap things up. So I just want to take a moment right now just to thank Dana. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge and your expertise with us. We know your presentation will stimulate further conversation moving forward. And to our attendees, thank you so much for attending this event. We hope to see you for our future webinars. And just a couple of things as we wrap up here. On February the 5th, we will be hosting the Cabin Fever Reliever event. It's back and the event will once again be virtual, unfortunately. But for registration details, please go to our website and for further, there's some really fun activities happening. We're going to be having a live auction. There's items you can bid online. So it's a really fun event. So please do check that out. And then here is the information that people were asking about. And these are our, here are some upcoming webinars that we are going to be hosting. And again, you will find these, the webinars and the registration for these. For a couple of them, not all the registrations are posted yet, but for a couple of them there are. So please go to our website, specifically to our education zone there, for more details on that. And then lastly, just before you leave, we would ask that you please complete a short evaluation. When you exit the webinar today, it should pop up when you click the leave button. That's the little red button at the bottom or top of your screen, or you can scan the QR code that's using the camera on your phone to access the evaluation, the one that you see here on your screen. And so thank you once again to everyone for attending today, for staying a bit longer. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. And we look forward to seeing you for future webinars. Thanks again, and bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your day. It looks like it's sunny here in London, so I'm hoping it's sunny where you guys are too. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.